You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Affected by Altitude. I am Captain Rex, joined here with Evan Lang here on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, the Colorado Rockies affiliate of Fans First Sports Network. Happy Halloween.
For those of you listening to the audio-only version of the podcast, Skyler is wearing a Clone Trooper helmet.
I'm Captain Rex.
He can barely hear me through, and I'm not entirely convinced he can see through.
Oh, I can see everything.
I'm not sure I believe you, but it's hard to tell.
No, this visor's, it's very see-through. It's very nice.
Is it actually? You can't tell at all on my end of things.
No, yeah. Well, I can see everything.
Huh. All right. That's okay then.
Mm-hmm.
On this spooky, almost Halloween episode, because when this episode releases, it'll be the week of Halloween. Ha 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 ha, Halloween night.
Yes. And I'm going to take this helmet off now so I can stop yelling. Ugh.
While he takes the helmet off, my question is, if the Chicago White Sox are like getting a toothbrush in your candy basket when you go trick-or-treating, what does that make the Rockies?
More or less, the Rockies would be like the one house that I'd go to growing up where they'd always make you do a trick before you got your treat. And it's just like that annoying thing like that. And then the reward's never that good either.
When I was a kid, there was a house in my neighborhood, very, very young kid, think 6 years old or something, they did like an internal haunted house. And I was terrified of this house because they had like a spider that would drop down. I was terrified of that house, and I would never go in ever.
Yeah, we didn't have that as much out here in the boonies, out here in the country.
You know what I will say? An apple in your Halloween basket is not a good treat, but it is at least edible, and generally apples taste good. The people who do, toothbrushes or packs of raisins or whatever in your Halloween basket, those people are criminals.
Criminals, and lock them up.
I guess raisins are at least edible. I don't mind raisins, but come on. Yeah. Almost everybody likes apples. Raisins are a lot more divisive.
Oh yeah, I hate raisins. The heck with those.
I like raisins. I put them in my oatmeal.
You would, you old man.
What was that? Well, if I'm an old man, that means everybody has to listen to me. They're going to point and go, "Look, everyone, an old man is talking."
Mm-hmm. But, yeah. But we hope everybody has a good little Halloween festivities, holiday stuff. It's the time of year for chili and spooky stuff and candy, pumpkins galore, all that good stuff.
Pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah, sure. Pumpkin spice everything.
Yeah. You know what? One quick moment of that. It is now acceptable to enjoy a pumpkin spice latte. All right. When they put pumpkin spice lattes out at the end of August and the beginning of September. No. That is too early. You cannot enjoy a hot beverage with nutmeg when it is still 80 plus degrees outside.
There you go. Got our rules of thumb here. But, Evan, on this episode of Affected by Altitude, there's nothing scary to talk about for this spooky season than the Colorado Rockies. Ooh. Oh, goodness. If I had a loud scream, I would play that in my sound bites.
Yeah, and they'll like me.
Mm-hmm. That was my soundboard right now. But it's the spooky time of year. It's that weird World Series underway. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. The scariest World Series of our nightmares. But jumping into Rockies news. first bit of business that we're not surprised by this, but Patrick Saunders of the Denver Post, reporting and talking about this, multiple sources telling him and stuff, that the Rockies are likely to cut payroll for the 2025 season. And first and foremost, Evan, when I hear this news, I'm not surprised, because this seems like the course of action, just the natural course of action for the team, with contracts coming off the books, and we'll touch on it, less TV revenue because they lost the TV rights and stuff. So it was all the MLB produced stuff. Losing revenue in that aspect is where a lot of their payroll comes from. And then just the nature of how the roster is constructed right now, of a lot of money tied up already in guys, and you have a lot of younger guys on minimum contracts. Not too surprising to hear that payroll is going to probably take a dip in 2025.
Yeah, the biggest part of it is definitely the loss of TV revenue. The Rockies made something like $57 million from their TV deal before the death of AT&T Sportsnet Rocky Mountain. And, the MLB produced broadcasts, that doesn't really, bring in a lot of money. But then it's also just remembering a lot of the core is getting younger, but also a lot of money is still tied up in contracts that are now looking fairly unwise. We already knew Chris Bryant, who's set to make $27 million in 2025. Kyle Freeland is set to make $16 million. Both Ryan McMahon and Antonio Senzatela are both making $12 million. And I think Herman Marquez is making $10 million next year. So two guys each making $10+ million that basically did not play in 2024. And then Chris Bryant, who also basically did not play in 2024.
Yeah.
Just and as we look and we see, the Rockies are considered to be potentially trading some of the higher arbitration guys, your Cal Quantrells, your Brendan Rodgers, your Austin Gombers. It's a team that's looking to continue to get younger and cheaper, and in that it makes sense, because that's just how it do sometimes. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again, it would be a whole lot easier to swallow if the Rockies would just admit that that's what they were doing, because one, that would tell us, okay, they've at least got some modicum of a plan, and two, it sets reasonable expectations, rather than, oh, we think we can be competitive next year.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be the Royals.
Yeah. Yeah, the Royals aren't saying we're going to slash payroll. They actively went into last offseason saying, hey, we want to boost our payroll. We're going to do that.
We're going to make smart free agent acquisitions, particularly centered around pitching.
But yeah, so we hear all this, and it's not surprising to hear that payroll is going to take a dip. And the Rockies don't pour all the money that they get back into payroll. It's spread around a lot of things, but a lot of the money comes from TV revenue, is what the Rockies relied on mostly, for a big chunk of it. And so you lose that. And then attendance still took a dip, still pretty decent, but attendance also took a dip. So there's just not some of the revenue avenues took a dip. And part of that is partly too Rockies being terrible. So it's this weird, it's hard to find the balance of it. I'm never going to complain about understanding that the payroll is going to take a dip at times. I don't need it to be $200+ million and all that stuff. I just want good players and money spent wisely. And the Rockies, for everybody, the Rockies aren't cheapskates. They were middle of the pack this year, $150 million roughly in payroll this year. They've been higher, they've been lower, but usually they're in the middle of the pack. That's not them being cheapskates. It's just them spending money terribly.
Yeah, I mean, just to re-go over that list of people who are all making over $10 million for the Rockies in 2024, and and just all their other actions that they've done since even 2015, like just going back 10 years, they don't spend money in smart ways.
It's usually a lump sum into a couple of guys.
And I would rather not have the Rockies squander money on bad decisions than what they're doing now. My real thing that surprises me is that the Rockies so far, there's no hint of them adding we'll knock on wood here, an advertising patch.
Yeah, I don't know. They have other stuff that they've put up around the stadium. But yeah, the advertising patch on the uniforms doesn't seem like something they've pursued quite yet. I don't know. There's another revenue avenue. If that means a couple million more or whatever, I wouldn't be too mad about it. Other teams have done it, have gotten used to it.
I mean, I would still hate it if I'm being perfectly honest. I despise those ad patches, and I am still so mad that one, they moved the postseason and World Series patches to the chest to accommodate the ad patches, and two, the ad patches are bigger, so much bigger than the World Series patch on the uniforms. Like,
well, the World Series patch isn't costing money to try and sell something.
I don't like it. I will never like it. I don't
all
like the
about the
ads on the
money.
batting helmets. I don't like ads on the jerseys. I don't like that there's so many ads on the pitcher's mount. I don't like there's more and more ads everywhere I go, no matter what I do.
Mhm.
I don't like that the Avs have a sponsor patch on their jersey now.
Here's the thing, though, is those ad patches never do a thing for me. Like, I'm not gonna look at the jersey and say, "Oh, I need to go buy that." Like, that has
I
never
need to look
happened.
at this financial solutions company.
Yeah. So part of it's like, well, how much money does that actually bring back to the ad sponsors? That's what I wonder.
It can't be that much, though. At the very least, I'll credit the Avs for making, much like the Padres, for making the ad patch at least match the color scheme of the team.
Mhm.
Like, it drives me crazy with the Toronto Blue Jays are out there with a bright green ad patch.
Or the Royals with the quick stop or whatever patch. But yeah. But we're not here to get into the debates about ad patches and stuff.
I'll
But
do it.
it's more revenue avenues. Like, other ways can the team bring in money to compensate for less TV revenue? No, and you know how you increase TV revenue and more people wanting to watch? You have a better team. But how do you have a better team? Well, you need money to spend. So it's just a catch-22 awful cycle to try and figure out how do you balance that.
Yeah, and not a whole lot of people, I think, I think a decent amount were, but I'm not sure how many people were willing to spend the, $100 for the Rockies TV subscription.
Yeah, especially when a lot of people already had MLB TV through already having that subscription, or already having, the free from T-Mobile. Like, that stuff you're already blacked out still.
Yeah,
I
and
think that caused them to take a hit too, is people not wanting a Rocky specific one.
and a lot of the more casual fans I know were like, I don't want to bother with that.
Yeah.
Why can't I just watch it on TV? Or the Rockies are lousy. Why do I want to pay money to watch them?
Yeah. So it's awful, but hopefully the thing that's going to come down of, well, how can they cut payroll? And we talked about this a little bit last week, but it's going to be trying to move contracts, move on from some guys. Namely, Patrick Saunders points out probably Cal Quantrill is going to be the one they're most motivated to try and move. Like we talked about last week, he's bound to maybe somewhere in the 9 million range for his last year of arbitration. After his year and that money, I don't think the Rockies are going to want to pay that much to Cal Quantrill. So he's a natural one. Like, yeah, I probably want to move on from him.
You mean the guy they should have traded at the deadline, they should be trading now?
Well, they can't trade him right now.
Or rather, when that window opens up.
In a week.
Listen, you. No, Cal Quantrill is a no-brainer to trade. I like Cal. He's already said that he wants to play for a contender. He's unlikely to re-sign with the Rockies when his contract is up at the end of this year. And his arbitration number is, I believe, the highest projected on the team.
Mm-hmm.
Get what value you can for him, especially when the rotation is going to be a lot more crowded next year. You ideally have a healthy Armand and Antonio Senzatela back. You have Kylo Freeland, who pitched basically the entire season last year. And then you've got all these young guns coming up. You could see, Yuhanyer Herrera or Bradley Blaylock try and make a move for a rotation spot. You've got Chase Dollander, you've got Sean Sullivan, you've got Carson Palmquist. You've got guys in the ready. And for a team that is rebuilding, and as much as they say, oh, well, we think we can be competitive next year, we all know that it's incredibly unlikely.
Yeah.
And spending the projected number for Cal Quantrill is $9.9 million in arbitration on a guy who's going to walk at the end of the season just doesn't make any sense for this team.
Yeah, and I could totally see Quantrill being a non-tender guy, where we saw reports and stuff that there wasn't a whole lot of interest in Quantrill at the deadline either. And so I don't know how much more, and that's when he was better.
Yeah,
I don't
he
think
didn't exactly help his case with the second half.
Yeah, and so it would be hard for a team to trade with a team and have them sign him for that $9 million, almost $10 million. It may be an option. They just have to non-tender him, and another team can try and sign him for cheaper for a 1-year deal or something, so we can try and establish more value that way. But either way, I do not think Cal Quantrill will be on this team come spring training.
Yeah, and we talked about it again over the last week or so. Brendan, of the three big names, I think Brendan Rodgers is maybe the most likely to still be here. But even then, it's a big question mark, especially when we don't really know what direction the Rockies want to go in terms of second base.
Yeah. And even that of him sticking around, he's also probably the best trade candidate. And just, I'd say Gomber is a close second. Quantrill's tough one to trade because of that money. No option in arbitration. But with Gomber, maybe he and Rodgers both owed about the same. About 5.5 is where they're projected to earn, somewhere around there. Gomber maybe, but the Rockies almost seem motivated to keep him and maybe even put him in the bullpen could be an option. But Rodgers seems like the guy that teams always need some sort of position player. He's still relatively cheap for a 1-year deal, but and he has good defense. It's just a matter of how consistent can he be offensively. Yeah, those three are going to be the ones they're looking at like, oh, what can we do? How can we move this money around and afford to keep one, maybe two of these guys while paying our other arbitration eligible players who aren't making a ton? It's like at most $1 million or so for a lot of these guys, or $2 million tops. It's a relatively cheap, small drop in the bucket.
Yeah, I mean, even for the Rockies, I think the next biggest guy is Ryan Feltner, and he's only due like 2.6 projected.
Yeah.
It's, arbitration is not usually big money.
Yeah. Yeah, unless they're signing them to like a big extension, or they've been having monster years that demand a higher value, like a Shohei Ohtani or a Juan Soto, a Fernando Tatis Jr., that kind of stuff. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do to try and shave money off the top that could then be replaced by either free agents they want to add, because we know they want to add like at least one veteran in the bullpen with Tyler Kinley. So just shaving money off the top where they can. Unfortunately, it'd be nice if you could move on from some of the money that you're locked up in some of these guys at the top, like a Kyle Freeland, what's his name, Chris Bryant, Senzatella, some of these guys making double digits. It's going to be an interesting process over these next couple months.
The one thing you can expect is that the Rockies will not be signing Juan Soto.
Unfortunately not.
Which, man, I've said it before and I'll say it again. He is literally exactly what the Rockies want in a hitter.
Mm-hmm.
He can send baseballs to the moon, but he's got an incredible plate approach. He will draw a ton of walks. He'll get on base.
Then he'll play Gold Glove level defense, apparently. That one's kind of weird with people putting up
Please.
the low lights of like, how did he get a Gold Glove nomination?
Because it's mostly a popularity contest.
Yeah, that and right field's not that hard to play at Yankee Stadium, I bet.
It's how Nolan Arenado, the last couple seasons, his defense at third base has been not that good. Dealing with injuries, dealing with other stuff, dealing with a different team makeup, but he still makes it into the finalists basically every year.
Mm-hmm. Except last year he didn't do it. But yeah, payroll. It's not surprising. I'm not mad that it's going down.
No,
It's
I'm not
understandable. It's
either.
the direction this team should be going in. It has to be that they're committing to the younger guys. You know, let Jordan Beck or somebody else be that starting right fielder, but don't bring in a Hunter Renfroe to be your starting right fielder because he's a veteran. He can help us. Like no, those at bats are better served going to a Jordan Beck, a Zach Veen, a Yanquiel Fernandez, that type of stuff than some random old man who settles in. A Jake Cave, Sam Hilliard, even. Like,
Come on back, Kevin Pillar.
ugh.
No, he's retiring at the end of the season.
Yeah. No amount of money could coax him. There's probably amount of money that could coax him back, but
5 years, $70 million.
yeah, but we're not giving it to him, I hope. Yeah, ugh. Weird process. But yeah, so that's the news with payroll. It is what it is. They can still play this the right way. And like you'll have like what? Probably 130 million tops, maybe somewhere around there, which isn't terrible. It's not an awful payroll. It's definitely lower than maybe you'd hope, but but like we said, it's where is that money allocated? Unfortunately, it's tied up in a lot of underperforming veterans or people who probably shouldn't be making that amount of money.
Yeah, and it really is. I know we need to wrap the segment up, but it really just does go to show how much a lot of these, I would call them the loyalty contracts for Kyle Freeland, Antonio Sensatela, Herman Marquez, Ryan McMahon, just haven't really worked out.
Mm-hmm. It was them trying to be savvy and be loyal to their guys, but then every single one has honestly proved they shouldn't have been making this money. So they should have, at least for as long as they did and for the amount that they all got, probably shouldn't have paid them that.
Yeah. And it's going to be really weird to see where guys like Herman end up because Herman's a free agent after 2025.
Mm-hmm. And he wants to play for a contender.
Unless the Rockies dazzle him with money.
Yep. So who knows? We'll see what happens. But of course, you'll be able to follow us along here at, I almost called it Every Rocky Ever. That's the other podcast. Affected by Altitude.
I mean, listen to Every Rocky Ever too.
But yeah, you can always follow us along here and we'll have all that action and news and stuff. But speaking of news, we'll have some to talk about after we take a quick break. So don't go anywhere here on Affected by Altitude. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. Blah.
I want to wash your windows.
Yes, this is our Halloween episode. Blah. But we had some news, Evan, this past week. First and foremost, Rockies have a new bullpen coach. And lo and behold, you'll never believe it, Evan, they hired from within. Can you believe that? My goodness, what a shocker this was that the team decided to hire from within.
I'm so shocked. Oh man, this came out of nowhere. The Rockies promoting and hiring from within instead of casting a wide net outside the organization.
It's crazy, yeah. This team who's always so open to outside influence. But
I'm a little worried that this is a sign the Rockies are starting to become a little insular.
But jokes aside, they promoted. Is it a promotion or is it just reassigning? Is it a promotion when you leave the front office?
I would consider it a promotion.
Yeah, we'll call it a promotion for him. But organizational catching coordinator Dustin Garneau, former former Rocky catcher, that's right, catcher, is now the Rockies' new bullpen coach. It was announced this past week for the 2025 season. Garneau spent 3 years with the Rockies from 2015 through several parts of other years, roughly around 2017. Came back to the organization 2021 for a brief spell, but retired in 2022. Rockies hired him in 23 to be a catching coordinator for the organization. They've liked what he's done, and now he's getting the chance. He'll take an on-field coaching role in the bullpen with the Major League squad. And Evan, your thoughts here on this move of Garneau joining the coaching staff?
Honestly, I don't hate it, considering that there is not a ton of coaching turnover this year, that most of the same guys are going to be back. It does not surprise me at all that they promoted from within. And honestly, I do like the shakeup of the Rockies having their bullpen coach be a catcher for the first time since like 2002, I think we figured out. Dustin Garneau while his playing career never really shook out, 1.6 wins above replacement in 8 years of big league play, he's got a really good baseball mind to him. It's one of the reasons why he's been praised for in basically every organization he's been a part of, the Astros, the Athletics, the Tigers, for his ability to teach and mentor, for his thoughts on baseball strategy, both catching and pitching. Overall, I honestly kind of like the move. It would be a lot more easy to like if it wasn't such a classic Rockies move of we picked a guy already in the organization and moved him up to that. And I do call it a promotion because I think about how a lot of times the hitting coach comes from being the hitting coordinator. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what makes me think of it being a promotion. Overall, I think it's a solid move, because you can at least see how he does in this role and not being one of, the old, I'm trying to not say it in a mean way, the old fogies like Bud Black, who are very much set in their ways mm-hmm. of a older and more outdated way of baseball, versus Dustin Garneau, like, just turned 37 or something recently. He's a younger guy who's much more in tune with younger people in the clubhouse and the more modern game of baseball. So that part I do like, and I do like shaking it up. And instead of it having to be another retread of an older former bullpen pitcher or something like that, you've got a younger guy who knows what the ball looks like from the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and looking back on an old Rockies blog article, when Garneau was initially hired as it was a position they created for him. They didn't necessarily need a catching coordinator because they had what's his name? Mark Strittmatter was the catching coordinator and catching and field coordinator in 2022. But they brought in Garneau and created the role for him, whereas the organizational catching and game planning. So he focused a lot on the game planning with the catchers and the minors, with the hope that the game planning process would be a seamless transition from AAA or the minors to the big league squad. And that's what Garneau was hired for, is to help those young catchers with the game planning. Because honestly, despite his offensive numbers not being that good in the big leagues, Garneau wasn't a bad catcher. He had a good fielding percentage, a ERA. He had mostly around 4 ERA as a catcher, somewhere around there. Couldn't a couple of sub-4 ERAs with the Rockies in a couple of those seasons. So he's not too shabby behind the plate. Nice catch, pop time, all the catching, receiving, throwing. He's got all that stuff down. So they brought him in, and hopefully so he could bring that experience and game planning to the squad. And that's probably going to be a little bit more helpful as a bullpen guy in terms of game planning. And maybe he'll have an expanded role in that, as a pitching coach, not just the bullpen coach, but working with Darryl Scott and Bud Black in helping guys with that game planning with the catchers and with the pitchers. I think is going to be really helpful, or hopefully could be helpful and guys coming in with a plan, knowing how to attack guys, coming at the bullpen.
Especially when last year, I feel like we said it a lot, the preparation and game planning on the big league roster seemed to leave a lot to be desired. I feel like there were a lot of games where, like, what did you guys do to prepare for this? Like, you looked completely unready to face this team. And I'm hoping that, your Bud Blacks and your Mike Redmonds will listen to Garneau if he's, putting down new information or ways for this team to improve, ways for this team to plan better and prepare better. I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here's some that he was saying back in 23 when he was hired, where mostly he said his job in teaching the catchers is to take my job away from myself. If the catchers get to where they don't need Garneau or need him increasingly less, then he said he's doing his job correctly. And that's which one is he's helping them, hopefully can help them develop as pitchers and catchers and how to plan and develop around the knowledge that they have of a hitter of their own arsenal and stuff, and enable them to take maybe some more credit and be a little bit more proactive in their game planning of, okay, if I'm facing so-and-so, well, I'm Seth Halverson, I'm going to come in, bust some fastballs in, and boom, drop in my changeup, that kind of stuff. So hopefully he can bring that catching experience. He's the first one since 2002 that has been a former catcher in the Rockies bullpen as the coach since Fred Kendall. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic works of a former catcher working with these high velocity young relievers.
A thing I really like about it that you touched on is, you talk about him saying he wants to teach the guys how to do this themselves so they don't need to rely on him. I feel like the Rockies really haven't had, and granted, we had a little bit less behind the scenes for guys like Elias Diaz and company, but Tony Wolters was famous for his intensive reviews of scouting reports and game planning. Mm-hmm. Like, they called him Papers because he was always carrying around all the physical paper scouting reports pre-game. Mm-hmm. And I feel like we never really heard about that part of the game since Tony left.
Yeah. Yeah, or there's any of really the guys of not just the catchers or pitchers, but we hear less of guys' preparation before games, their homework they're doing, and we don't need to hear about it all of it all the time. But to know that there's a guy out in the bullpen that was really meticulous with planning, game planning, having a plan of attack, and then adjusting because you can't plan for everything. You have to constantly adjust. And so having a coach, hopefully that can be proactive and helping these guys understand that, and take some accountability for themselves too. For like, it needs to be on them to help themselves improve as well. It's a two-way street. It's not just on the coaches. It's not just on the players. It's a two-way street of both of them taking that accountability and pushing forward. So we'll see. He's can only go anywhere but up. He can only go up from where the bullpen was last season. And we saw a hint of where it could be with the youngsters in September. But it'll be interesting to see what happens this coming season of what impact he can have working in that bullpen.
Yeah, and the bullpen's going to be so interesting because we're definitely carrying that new look bullpen into 2025, where it's pretty much a guarantee, in my opinion, that unless they absolutely bomb in spring training, Halverson and Peralta are definitely both on the big league roster to start next year. I'm trying to think of.
You've got Vodnik, and then
Victor Vodnik.
Jaden Hill will be in that mix.
Jaden Hill apparently was at the World Series game yesterday.
Good for him.
Yeah, that's fun. And a lot of the older guys are likely departing if they haven't already. Really, the oldest guy in that bullpen is going to be Tyler Kinley.
Mm-hmm. And so then that leaves what happens to Jake Bird, what happens to Justin Lawrence. There's some openings in that bullpen still, plus whatever veteran they hope to bring in. They need a closer of somebody to be a closer. So it's gonna be interesting. So Garneau's got his work cut out for him, but He seems like if anybody could do it, it's a catcher. And that's why catchers have been bullpen coaches and regular pitching coaches and stuff before.
Yeah. And I'm going to make a bold prediction. I think we see Zach Agnos in the bigs at some point in 2025.
There you go. There you go. I know. Hopefully, maybe Garneau too. You have him in that bullpen. He can throw some little wisdom over to the catchers as well.
Absolutely. I like a lot of our bullpen staff and other coaches. Aaron Munoz is his name, I think. I think he does a great job, and I think this is a really good opportunity for Dustin Garneau, and I think this is going to end up being a really good opportunity for excuse me, for the other catchers in the organization, for some of the younger coaches in the organization as well. You know, Tony Walters is on that track, on the coaching track now. I don't know. I can legitimately see this working out.
Yeah.
And I hope it does.
Yeah, it's something different, I think, which is good. And if only there could have been more different things happening with the coaching staff, but it is what it is at this point. But moving right along here, congrats to Dustin Garneau. Wish him the best of luck. But moving along here, well, there was a funny exchange that we had in the Slack channel on, what day was this? The other day, whenever we're recording here on this Saturday. Is the other day? Oh, Thursday. On Thursday, the Fielding Bible Awards were being announced, handed out. And now this is an award they've been handing out for the past 18 years or so. And so here's the 19th year that they're doing it. Last year, Brenton Doyle just narrowly missed out, finished in second behind Kevin Kiermaier because there was a bunch of people who put him fifth in their voting lists. And so that kind of tanked his point totals. But narrowly misses out. Well, as they were announcing awards, I put into our Purple Rose Slack channel and said, oh, they're announcing awards. Outfield is up next. Evan mentions that that Doyle got robbed last year. And then I put, oh, it probably won't. He probably doesn't win it this year. Because looking at it, when the other winners were being announced, it was led their position in defensive wars, DRS. I was like, oh, well, it seems like most of these guys are being awarded via DRS and how people voted, popular names. To my surprise, shortly after I sent that message in Slack, I look at Twitter and see that Brenton Doyle won the Fielding Bible Award for center field. And I posted that and said, I stand corrected. Happy days.
Yeah, like less than a minute later, it's like, he's probably not winning this year. I stand corrected.
Never mind. I jinxed it and I was wrong. So there we go. You're welcome. You're welcome, Brenton Doyle. It had nothing to do with your talent in the outfield. I won it for you.
Before we talk about Brenton, also worth shouting out that Ryan McMahon and Ezekiel Tovar both finished in second place for the awards for their respective positions, which is great. Much like how Doyle finished second last year. And I really was surprised because numbers-wise, Doyle was not better in center field than he was last year. Last year, Brenton Doyle was statistically the best center fielder in all of baseball. And, you know, as things happen, those numbers took a little bit of a dip last year. But at the same time, Brenton Doyle was, in my opinion, without a doubt, the single most exciting center fielder to watch in all of baseball in 2024. Just, it felt like every game he was doing something incredible out there. And this is such a cool award for him. He's also a finalist for the Gold Glove at center field this year. It's so cool and so nice. You know, 32 seasons of Rockies baseball, and we've never had a center fielder this good.
Yeah, and I think what had happened, there were conversations in our Purple Rose Slack earlier in the year, like, oh, Doyle's not as good in center field as he was last year. And part of, I doubt, like, he passes the eye test where he's not doing anything different. It's just a fact of the matter where, one, opportunity, it's never going to be the same as an outfielder. So, and patrolling Coors Field, it's hard to replicate that year after year after year. He plays in one of the biggest outfields in baseball. But it was, he doesn't have any defensive runs saved or doesn't have as many assists. And a big part of it is teams had just learned not to run on him. They knew, okay, you got to respect Brenton Doyle's arm. We can't try to go for that extra base. And so a lot of what he did this year is still pretty dang good. I think it was like 11 DRS or 11 plus, somewhere in there, like 15. Quite a bit. It's still good DRS.
I'm pulling him up right now. Brenton Doyle was basically in a three-way tie for the second best DRS among center fielders in all of the league with 11. So it was Doyle, Michael Harris the second with Atlanta, and Pete Crow Armstrong with the Cubs all at 11. And then just barely in front of them in a two-way tie for first place was with 12, Jose Siri of Tampa and Jacob Young of Washington. And, Doyle is, we know, an incredibly impressive fielder. And you're right, is like, people learned, do not run on Brenton Doyle. He will make you regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Worth noting also that per Ultimate Zone rating, Brenton Doyle led the league at 11.4. He was third in Ultimate Zone per 150. And Brenton Doyle was also third in outs above average with 16.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we think like the plays that Doyle goes to make that helps in his DRS. So, and he gets to a lot of balls, especially in that outfield. And so there's maybe some that, if he makes the catch, great. If not, well, he's going to lose some points on his DRS. But still, the fact that he was there to try and make a play is incredible. And that's what's nice with this voting. The same goes with the Gold Glove. It's a panel of various experts that take, the data and other preferences, like you said, popularity or the knowledge of things, the notable things. Doyle earned that respect, and people across the league, they know he's probably one of the best center fielders in the game defensively.
And you know how I know is because when watching Rockies TV, when watching MLB TV, we saw highlights of Brenton Doyle in center field in those flashback things. And the amount of times you see a Rocky in those is exceedingly rare. It's almost all like popular players and big name teams. And then regularly they're showing him making that robbery at the wall at Coors Field, his diving catches at against the Chicago White Sox. Like, he got it. Mm-hmm. He got that recognition and respect. And it's all, and I think a large part of it is because of his range. Like, his range numbers are way higher than pretty much any other center fielder in the league.
Yeah. And the fact that he plays half his games at Coors Field, it says a lot that he's having to cover that range, cover that acres with a bad knee too. Tendonitis in his knee halfway through the season. So yeah, it's across the board. He was more than deserving of it. I think Dalton Varsho came in second behind him. And Varsho went on to win the multi-position award, Fielding Bible. Yeah, nobody but Doyle could have won it this year. We're doubtful if it was strictly by DRS, but just across the board, Doyle is probably the best center fielder in baseball, I would say.
Love it. Like, he is, I still say, you sign him long term.
Mm-hmm. We'll see. Real quick before we take our final break. Also, Tovar and McMahon are also finalists for the Gold Gloves. Doyle, we're probably we're like 90% chance he gets it again, gets his second straight. But McMahon is a finalist once again, as is Tovar. But I don't think either of them win it this year. Matt Chapman probably gets it at third base, and then seems like Mason Wynn might get the nod at shortstop.
Yeah, Mason Wynn, who won the Fielding Bible Award for shortstop this year. Honestly, I do agree. Ryan McMahon, again, an incredible defensive season at third base. It's what he is known for at this point. But Chapman had a better year defensively, while also playing for a bigger name team and doing more with the bat.
Yeah. The best glove in the American League comes to the National League. And then he also has Arenado, who's also there as a finalists. So it's tough for McMahon to break through all three of that.
I'm not saying there's not a chance for either of them. It's just it's more unlikely.
Yeah, it's tougher to be like, yes, they are going to win it.
Versus, I think Doyle is pretty straightforward. I think he is most likely to win, and I think he even has a chance of picking up the platinum this year.
Be interesting. Probably just give it to Chapman again. They're like, oh, he needs another platinum.
Grr.
Anyways, yeah. So those are our Dustin Garneau, and then some fielding stuff. Congratulations to Brenton Doyle. He's doing it. He's getting it done. Good for him. And he got it done with the bat. So he's almost an entirely complete player.
I mean, he was the Rockies' most valuable player by far and away this year.
Mm-hmm. But we'll take our one last break here, and we'll come back. We'll just talk about some stuff. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back here to Affected by Altitude. What's the deal with the Rockies? Because Evan was doing the Seinfeld theme.
It's a show about nothing.
Mm-hmm. It's a podcast about nothing. That nothing being the Rockies. But
why are corn nuts so loud when you eat them?
I like corn nuts.
I also like corn nuts.
Mm-hmm. But
it's observational comedy because there's a bag of corn nuts on my desk right now.
There you go. But we're actually not going to talk about the Rockies in this last little bit because it's World Series time, baby. And it's, well, our worst nightmares were realized where it's a Yankees-Dodgers World Series. As of recording, this is Saturday, so we haven't seen Game 2 yet. But Dodgers currently lead at time of recording 1-0 in the series. After Freddie Freeman, you can put an expletive in between Freddie and Freeman. It could even start with an F. But it's a walk-off grand slam in the bottom of the 10th in Game 1. From what it sounds like, exciting game. I don't have television, so I don't get to watch the World Series because I don't pay for cable anymore. But, Evan, what are your thoughts here on this World Series? This is one that it's kind of split, where there's a ton of people like, this is going to be the greatest World Series in the history of baseball, and others like, I do not care about this World Series at all.
It's complicated. When it was set in stone that it was going to be Yankees-Dodgers, I was like, oh, this is the worst case scenario. I hate it. It's terrible, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of is. Like, if you are not a Dodgers fan or you are not a Yankees fan, this is basically going, evil wins. Yay!
Money.
But at the same, and there's also the people going, oh, this is really good for baseball. Then I rebut that slightly. Is it good for the league? Yes. Is it good for the Yankees and the Dodgers? Yes. Is it good for pretty much any other team in the league? No, not really.
Nope.
Because it's like, they're like, oh, it's going to draw in more fans from all across the country and all over the world. And it's like, yeah, and if they become fans, they're going to become Yankees or Dodgers fans, two of the biggest fan bases in the league. This does not bring extra eyes or extra revenue to any other team in Major League Baseball, essentially.
Yeah.
But then on the other side of things, I do definitely get the wow factor of you've got these two juggernaut teams with a combined, like, at least 3 likely Hall of Famers, probably even more, absolute star power.
Mm-hmm.
It is pretty cool from an outside perspective, like the idea of Shohei Ohtani versus Giancarlo Stanton, who absolutely, I'm sorry, I don't like the Yankees. I like Giancarlo Stanton. And watching him, he hit the Yankees home run yesterday that originally put the Yankees on top before they lost in extras. He atomized a baseball.
Mm-hmm.
It was cool. It is cool. But at the same time, it sucks.
Well, yeah, there's like, for a lot of fans, it's that taint of the organizations that these awesome players are playing for. Like, there's a ton of players on the Yankees. Like, I don't hate Aaron Judge. Like, there's a lot of players that I actually like. I just hate the fact that they're playing for the Yankees. No, I hate the team, but I like the players, if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely.
It's the same with the Dodgers, like Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Shohei Ohtani. there's a ton of guys who are like,
Yeah.
these are likable players. Like, these are good, likable
Freddie Freeman
players.
is awesome.
But
And
they're playing for the evil empire.
yeah,
That's what's
and
awful about it.
and when Freddie hit that walk-off grand slam, your heart's just like, oh, Dodgers. But then you look at Freddie and go, but it's Freddie. We love Freddie.
That's the thing where it's that weird dichotomy. Like, I hate these two teams. I hate them with a passion. I do not want either of them to win. The players, if it was just two generic teams, like it's the blue team versus the gray team.
The mighty Wombats versus the humongous Melonheads.
Exactly. Like, if they didn't have the stink of the organizations they're playing for, yeah, this would be an incredible World Series. Because I don't care if the Dodgers win it or not. I do care if they win it or not. I don't want them to win it.
Yeah.
I don't want the Yankees to win it. That's the
it's the thing of you really don't want either team to win. And where I have kind of settled right now is that I will not cheer for a team, but regardless of who wins, I can hold my tongue a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
For the Dodgers, it's for Fernando. The fact that Fernando Valenzuela, one of arguably the most important Dodgers in recent franchise history, the single greatest Mexican-born pitcher of all time, huge for sort of reigniting kind of the popularity of the Dodgers in the 80s and 90s, passed away very suddenly this last week, that I would hate to see the Dodgers win the World Series. Hate it. With the white-hot passion of 1,000 burning suns. But I can also fall back onto, well, they did it for Fernando. That's at least something. Like, it's a more like personal aspect versus the team aspect. And it's the same for the Yankees, I guess, where either way, the fan base is going to be absolutely insufferable no matter who wins this World Series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if only it was just the players. There's no teams, there are no fan bases attached to them. It was just these. No,
I will say it would be easier to take a side if DJ LeMahieu was not hurt. If DJ LeMahieu was active and playing and on the Yankees roster, I would probably be more on the side of the Yankees winning because I like DJ LeMahieu and I would want him to get a ring. But he's not playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, this is probably one of the more likable Yankees squads of the last decade or more. There's a lot of interesting young talent. You got likable guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge. You got rookies like Volpe and Wells. But at the same time,
they have Alex Verdugo.
And Alex Verdugo is there. And it's the Yankees. And you've got Aaron Boone, who I do not think is a good manager.
The Dodgers have Dave Roberts, who really isn't that good of a manager. It's easy to look like a good manager when your team is packed to the gills with superstar talent.
Yeah, when I said it when it happened, it was, this is two teams with fan bases I consider largely insufferable, that both have basically unlimited money and resources, who are fighting to see which of the two of them comes out on top this year.
Yeah.
Versus like my ideal World Series was, I know the Mets had a gigantic payroll, but the Mets are at least like, they had a lot of charm to them this year.
And a lot of that payroll is tied up in guys not even playing on their team anymore.
Exactly. Scherzer, Verlander. But my ideal World Series matchup was Tigers-Mets. That's who I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tigers were eliminated. Hard-fought series. They have so much to be proud of. Honestly, all of the teams who got eliminated this year, especially in the American League, but especially want to point out the Tigers and the Royals and the Guardians, the three AL Central teams.
They kind of screwed over the American League's chances.
But they played really well.
Yeah.
And like, I was watching a recap of the series, the Yankees Royals series, and it's like, the Royals have nothing to be ashamed of. They played well. They got beaten by the team that was on paper the more superior team.
Yeah.
And then you've got teams like the Tigers who are emerging from their rebuild and already exceeded expectations this year, and the Guardians, who were supposed to be rebuilding and are in the first year with a brand new manager, brand new rookie manager, and they all made it this far.
Mm-hmm. And for me, going back to that question of this is good for baseball and stuff, it's that catch-22 of, yes, it helps build that popularity because you have your biggest stars, you have your biggest name teams in the World Series. But unlike the other sports, baseball is so territorialized where it's a lot more local. You know, you have your local broadcasters, your local things that teams follow, like the Broncos don't necessarily have, they're on various different networks. Now you'll have different commentators on those games. Whereas with baseball, you have your local guys that you follow all season long for 162 games. No, you follow them. So it's very localized. There's the deep rivalries where it's like us. We do not like those big money market teams like the Yankees and the Dodgers because they have those unlimited resources where we're a lot more limited. And so I think in that aspect, it doesn't do a whole lot for the league. Like you're saying, it's good for making it wider, the national audience, try to bring in new people and just be a lot more prime-timey, good for Hollywood type stuff. But this World Series does nothing for me, a diehard Rockies fan who is constantly beat up by one of these teams 14 times a year and has been under their thumb for the past decade plus. And then the Yankees, who it's the Yankees. Nobody likes the Yankees.
Yeah. I think the best way to describe it is the meme that we've been seeing all over the place, which is who's rooting for who. And there's a circle around Los Angeles that says they're rooting for the Dodgers. Yeah. There's a circle around New York that says they're rooting for the Yankees. The rest of the map is bright red and says they're rooting for a giant meteor to hit the stadium.
Yeah.
And I think overall, the playoff field, the playoffs in general, were better for baseball as a whole, the health of the sport as a whole, than this World Series.
Yeah, because you had the stories and the different looks of teams, underdogs, where ultimately, the teams that spent the most money had roughly the most wins in both their leagues. They're in the World Series. Oh, that's great. What was the point of everything?
Yeah.
If you can just buy and spend your way. And that is a larger conversation around the league of this is exemplifies problems across baseball where rosters and teams are not equal. And owners, there's wealthier owners than others. And so there's teams that have more resources can sign the best player on the planet and have him defer $680 million for the next 20 years. There's those differences where, like, yeah, the Rockies, they couldn't pull in a Juan Soto in free agency.
Yeah.
They couldn't go out and get Aaron Judge or Garrett Cole.
The Rockies wouldn't have been able to bring a hot pitcher from Japan and make him the highest paid pitcher in the league without playing a single game.
Yeah. And so there's that disparity, and that's a bigger problem in baseball.
Yeah.
And this is where having these two teams, it then influences of, some other high value free agents who, Rockies could go after. They're going to opt for a Yankees or a Dodgers because those guys are competing and I want to play with them.
Yeah. Or pretty much like the big names in Japanese posting, basically every single person says it's going to be the Dodgers who are front runners because Ohtani and Yamamoto are already there and the Dodgers can pay them the most money.
Yeah. So from just an outside, just basic baseball perspective, World Series and the players in it, yeah, that's awesome. The teams that are in it, the organizations, the ownership that brought them there, it's not great. It's not good for the rich to continue to get richer and all that stuff. So it's a weird mixed bag of a World Series. Where you're happy to see the players that are going up against each other. You're not happy for the fans. You're not happy for the teams that they're on. It's very individualized.
Yeah. I am happy, and individualized, that's a great way to put it. I am happy for the individual Dodgers and Yankees fans that I know in my personal life who are not huge jerks about it. Good for you, 2 or 3 people.
Yeah.
But for the fan base as a whole, I've made my feelings on the Dodgers fan base well known.
Yeah. Ugh. It's weird. Anyway, is there a way they can just end in a tie?
Meteor.
They both win 6 games, and then the 7th game, or they win 6 games. They both win 3 games. The 7th game never happens. Some sort of disaster. They all had unfortunate circumstances, like falling into the unknown's mystery spot.
3 misfortunes, it's possible. 7, unlikely, but 9 misfortunes.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, what about all those unsolved murders in New York? You can't pin those on Shohei Ohtani?
There are hundreds of unsolved murders in New York City.
But yeah, it's so a weird feeling to kind of cope with. You're like, I'm more or less like hoping the Yankees win it just because I cannot bring myself to root for the Dodgers organization at all.
Yeah.
Like, not at all. Yankees, I'm removed from enough where it's like, I don't want them to, but it's better than the alternative.
Yes.
Pick your poison.
Basically what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try to enjoy the series as best I can, enjoy the spectacle of it, and just try not to hate every minute of it because it's the last baseball I'm going to get to watch for a couple of months.
No, there's Winter League.
And for what it's worth, like, the game last night was a good game. It was objectively a good game.
Yeah, you had fan interference, you had home runs, you had pitching.
Man, that guy.
You had a home run, grand slam.
Listening to the walk-off grand slam from the parking lot. Ugh. I don't know how many more times it has to be said. If you have seats in home run territory, you keep your glove and your hands behind that wall.
No, but I got to catch it.
You can catch it if it goes over the wall.
No, I'm going to catch it now.
Don't do that.
Why not? I'm going to do it.
That's the wrong thing to do.
I'm going to do it.
I don't think you're going to get ejected from the stadium. And he realized, like, the moment he caught it, he started packing up his stuff. It was like, oh, I messed up.
But Daddy, I want to stay for the game. Shut up. We got to leave. Oh, goodness. Yeah. Enjoy while you can. We're not going to judge you. We're going to air and judge you, but
that's baseball.
That's baseball. Isn't that right?
That happens. That's baseball.
That's right. What do you think, Ash from Army of Darkness?
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Oh, well, that was uncalled for. But that sums up the World Series there, Evans. Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Pretty much.
But anyways, Evan, where can the folks find you as we close out this episode?
You can find me on the tweeters for however long that burning hellhole still exists, at Evan_Lang27. I am also trying to be much more active on Blue Sky, evanlang27.bsky.social. And you can also always find me writing the Monday Rock Piles over on www.purplerow.com. You can also find Rocky Mountain Rooftop and Affected by Altitude, as well as our other shows, such as Every Rocky Ever, on your favorite podcasting platforms of choice: iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, iHeartRadio, etc., etc. And you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on your favorite social media platform of choice and on YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop.
Find me over on Twitter at @silent_crowd. Not usually that active during the off season. It's mostly just posting articles and stuff here and there, because I will not let that AI take my information to use it to train. Those fools. Make your own content to train. But
AI is great. Why would you want to waste your time putting art or content out there, and when you can have an AI do it, and that leaves you with so much more free time to go toil away at a meaningless job?
Let artificial intelligence help with things that matter, not that. Anyways, yeah, Purple Row, Wednesday Rock Piles, and keep checking out the Ranking the Rockies articles that are happening over at purplerow.com. We're into the 30s at this point over there. There's articles Monday through Friday every day. Monday through Friday, ranking the Rockies, also Purple Row articles, rock piles, all that good stuff. And find me over at fansfirstsports.com, writing some off-season stuff. Good times.
And we've got, we're going to continue to bring you weekly content as best we can here on the show. We've got some fun ideas. We've got some other stuff to do, especially after the season is officially wrapped up. So we do hope you continue to tune in with us every week.
Award shows are coming soon.
I picked up a bunch of PS1 baseball games to look at the rosters.
There you go. But that'll do it here. Thank you always for joining us. I'm Skyler. That's Evan. Hit him with it.
Farewell!
Farewell.
Man, I can't root for the Yankees. I live in Queens.
This has been Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast with Rocky Mountain Rooftop, a proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. Catch new episodes every Monday on wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Be sure to follow us on YouTube as well for video versions of the show.